Okay, thank you everyone for joining us on today's webinar, Embedded BI Best Practices. My name is John Ryan. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Yellowfin. And joining me on today's call is Lauren Gilbo, who's a principal at Blacklight Solutions, who is a Yellowfin partner. So say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Excellent. So look, together we'll be taking you through some of the learnings that we've had in working with ISVs, OEMs or embedded partners over the years. And it's a real privilege to have Blacklight Solutions on this call because they have embedded Yellowfin into many accounts. So you're going to get the benefit of two different perspectives on this webinar. So there will be a Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions, please just add that to the question panel throughout and we'll answer them at the end. Okay, so just a little introduction on our two companies. Yellowfin is a global business intelligence software vendor passionate about making business intelligence easy. And we offer a fresh approach to BI, and our software really focuses on empowering not just the analysts, but non-technical BI users to consume, analyze, and act on data. With Yellowfin, you do get everything out of the box from stunning dashboards that are completely customizable and rebrandable. And it integrates seamlessly into your application with rock-solid security. It's mobile-enabled, and it's designed for scalability and multi-tenancy as well. So as a result, it is ideal for embedding BI into other software applications. Blacklight is a data analytics consultancy headquartered in Austin, Texas, with a heavy focus on helping their clients build customer-facing analytics solutions. Blacklight is one of Yellowfin's strategic partners, and they've embedded Yellowfin as the analytics engine into a large number of customer accounts across 15 different verticals, such as network analysis, HR, to accounting packages, to CRM. And Blacklight have also developed their own technology called Data Current, which is a data virtualization product focused on enabling agile deployment for business applications on top of a large variety of ever-changing and growing data sets. So once again, we're thrilled to have Lauren on the call with us today to share her experience and knowledge of embedded BI from that systems integration point of view. So what is embedded BI and why is it different? Well, firstly, embedded BI is all about integrating business intelligence into an application rather than having a standalone business intelligence application that you log into. So effectively embedding BI into your app means that the users have the capability to analyze their data from within that application. And from that end user perspective, it needs to be a seamless experience so that they're not changing tools. Gartner says that the embedded BI market is growing and rapidly. So, and they predict that within 2 years, 25% of analytics applications will have BI capabilities embedded into them, which is up from just 5% back in 2010. So that is a big change. And I guess today's business users really expect their software to offer analytics features about their usage, and they expect the ability to be able to visualize whatever transactional data is going through that software through interactive dashboards so that they can slice and dice in order to make fast and informed decisions. So, and look, ultimately that's what BI is all about. So why embed BI and analytics into your product or your cloud-based SaaS application? Look, ultimately it's all about adding value to your customers. You know, it's a feature that customers want too. People are very interested in themselves. And, analytics and data visualizations are, a great window for them to understand how your product is valuable to them and how they can consume your product better. And many will now consider the ability to visualize their transactional data as that basic requirement. So you do want to be able to meet that demand. And at the same time, it's a great way to add the icing on the cake to what you do with your application as well. Having embedded BI is not only a great way of adding more value and attracting new customers, but it's also a potential way to grow your revenue too, where you have another module to sell onto your customer base. So it does depend on your market as to whether embedded analytics is something that you would offer out of the box or sell as a separate module. But there are certainly lots of customers willing to pay, and it's now common that you might find the analytics module or part of a freemium business model. So that's the part that you pay for on a freemium business model. because there is clear value into unlocking the insight. And finally, embedding analytics is a great way to expand your customer footprint too. So both in terms of usage time spent on the application, as well as getting others in the organization that wouldn't naturally be using the product to start using your product. And a great example of this is one of our partners in the risk and compliance business. And look, their transactional end user would have been, say, an accountant within the finance and accounts department. And with Yellowfin, they were able to extend that and make it more attractive to the executive management and the line managers who can now see and visualize the information. And they can really see how it's impacting, a department or the organization as a whole. So as a result, this ISV has really expanded the number of people that they touch with the application, giving them a much more traction within their customer base. Okay, so there are lots of free componentry out there for you to go and build your own BI solution. And as this slide suggests, there are also a lot of good ways to spend your weekends, but starting to build a BI solution from scratch probably isn't one of those. So from our perspective, Yellowfin actually started by embedding BI into another application. So that was Yellowfin's first inclination back in 2003. And back then we thought that, just putting a reporting module in, we'd be finished. And over a decade later, it's very clear that we're not finished. The journey continues. And there are always new analytic functionality, new needs and challenges to solve for our customers, as well as new ways to help make BI easier for those customers to consume as well. So why not build yourself? Well, there are a number of arguments, and so we'll take you through those in the next 3 slides. And there is an obvious cost in terms of money and personnel. Building your own BI solution where there are off-the-shelf solutions already out there essentially means that you're reinventing the wheel to some degree. And beyond that, you've got to think about all of the other associated ongoing costs and maintenance costs too. So meanwhile, third-party vendors such as Yellowfin have a very strong incentive to keep our products up to date. And we devote a significant amount of R&D focus purely on that analytics module. So we do find it very common that many of our embedded customers might have started out trying to build their module themselves, and then after 1, 2, or sometimes even 10 iterations do realize that it's far wiser, a long-term investment to swap in a specialist data visualization tool like Yellowfin. The next benefit is that embedding an existing BI product significantly reduces your time to market. So even a hard-coded, simple dashboard takes longer to code than embedding a third-party product. And as a software vendor ourselves, we know that launch deadlines often drive development decisions, and being able to hit these deadlines can be essential to capturing and maintaining that competitive advantage. So, and the other thing that you need to consider as well is what happens when your needs change. And they always do, particularly when it comes to the analytic needs of users. It's important to recognize it is a moving target. And when your team is constantly focusing on, reinventing that BI wheel rather than just spending their time focusing on your core competency, the primary needs of the market, it's not always a good thing. So third-party tools, BI tools such as Yellowfin, are incredibly flexible, and they're designed for not just easy adoption, but the agility so that you can meet today's needs now as well as those future needs in 6 to 9 months' time. And finally, while this might seem a little bit counterintuitive, embedding a third-party BI tool is a great way to ensure that your users have a positive and seamless user experience. BI tools like Yellowfin do include all of the functionality to make it easy to customize the look and feel of your implementation so that it does become a seamless extension of your brand, which makes sure it's well differentiated from your competitors. And this isn't just a question of how your product looks, but also how it behaves. So if you do build a BI tool from scratch, without that in-house expertise on data and analytics, and all the related interactivity, then your implementation might come across as a little bit odd or confusing to the users. So meanwhile, third-party BI solutions like Yellowfin really have those best practices for data visualization built into them, so it's a lot harder to go wrong. And this makes it much easier as well to safely give control to your customers. So as customers get more familiar with the interface and the data, you will start to get demand for different types of analytic customers. So, might start off with just dashboard access. And then, if you wanted to then give them the ability to build their own ad hoc reports and views of the data, then you can just roll out that functionality. It already comes with the product. So you already have what you need to cater to those future customer demands. Speaking of customer experience, just a few examples before we get started onto the best practices. NGAnet, they're a global leader in talent management, and they have a number of modules for talent acquisition, performance management, talent analytics, and Yellowfin powers their analytic component of that recruitment solution. And it's really the key strategic tool for in-depth analysis for all of their customers' recruitment functions. And their customers get pre-built dashboards. They can also report on the entire recruitment cycle, from request to hire to onboarding beyond. And they enable their users to be able to create their own user-defined dashboards with Yellowfin's drag and drop report writer. So obviously security, privacy play a big part in this for their industry. And also Yellowfin's architecture was a big reason why they went with Yellowfin. Pentana Solutions OEM'd Yellowfin into their solution for auto manufacturers. And Pentana's resource planning systems, they're used by more than 3,000 dealer locations and 48,000 dealership personnel every day throughout Asia Pacific. So their automotive intelligence solution is what it's called, gives car manufacturers the ability to analyze a dealer network performance using real-time sales and services data. So they can now identify profit opportunities, profit leaks, as well as analyze the strengths and weaknesses within the different groups. And they also benchmark the industry best practice for a wide range of different metrics to compare to. And finally, our last example for today is Integram Management. So they provide integrated management systems for over 200,000 users in over 40 countries. So this is traditionally around risk and compliance. So things such as incident management, investigation management, audit and inspection management, training management, compliance management, risk and control, those types of things. And, they've got clients such as Coca-Cola, Jetstar, Rio Tinto, Holden, Blackmores, so a whole heap of global companies. And again, Yellowfin is embedded as their reporting module to give their customers access to reports to their system. So they can create their own reports and even do predictive analytics there. And look, just over a month ago, Integram did win the 2014 Offshore Excellence Award for their implementation designed for the shipping industry. So it's capable of going offline and running remotely in areas of poor or no connectivity. So look, that's a few examples. So at this point, I'm going to hand over now to Lauren, who's going to take you through our best practices guide.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, John. I'm really excited to be here today. And as John mentioned, I'm Lauren Gilbo. I'm one of the principals at Blacklight Solutions. Myself and the rest of the team at Blacklight have quite a bit of history with Yellowfin. We've been around the world quite a while. They've been a great long-term partner for us and really have an awesome story around Embedded BI, which is why we partner with them so often, and we use them as much as we can for the customer-facing analytics solutions we build for our clients. So, as John mentioned, I'll be walking you through a list of best practices for embedding BI today. One thing to note before we dive in is embedding BI is really a completely different animal than an internal BI deployment. And there's a lot more on the line since you'll be putting this in front of your customers as part or sometimes all of your application. So there's really a ton to think through. So hopefully today we can get those wheels turning and moving in the right direction. All right, so kind of starting off, really, who is my customer? Before we dive right into the set of best practices, I have some critical questions here that you need to make sure to ask yourself and ideally ask your customer. So the gist of these questions is really to start with your customer's business problems and then work back into how your data can help with them. So besides your customer's top problems they already know, what other questions can you answer that may be difficult for your customer to do on their own? For example, you most likely generate a ton of data that they won't have access to. So there are likely some insights like industry benchmarking, for example, that would be extremely valuable to them. Also think about how your customer consumes data. Do they want to log in every day? Do they need alerts? Is simple better for them, or do they really need some complex analysis? So here's where you kind of figure out your value prop and pitch, and then use the embedded BI tool to realize that vision. So next, kind of think about how you plan to go to market. We work with a wide variety of companies, ranging from well-established global software vendors to brand new startups just getting going. In either situation, you need to determine how your customer-facing analytics solution is going to be accessed by your customer. So, you may have a ton of existing on-prem deployments, maybe, but are moving those customers over to a SaaS platform, which I've actually seen as a huge challenge for clients who've been in business for quite a while and have a large entrenched customer base. Some may choose to offer analytics as sort of a carrot you can't have unless you switch over to SaaS. Others in that situation, opt to offer kind of a blended approach. Both of them really have kind of their pros and cons, and really think through that. You need to decide on whether or not this will be an add-on module. If so, is it something you're going to charge for? Hopefully so. And how much? Or are you planning to maybe wrap this capability into your one price offering? And instead increase the price since you've added some really powerful functionality, and so kind of up your ASP, your average sale price. Think about if you really need to embed this, or if it makes more sense as kind of a standalone application. Or do you need just a few graphs dropped into your UI? So figure all this stuff out before really diving in and starting to evaluate vendors, and you'll save yourself a bunch of time. So now that you've kind of gotten an idea of what you want your end product to be, and how you want to deliver it, it's time to start to address your data. So think about where it resides today. Does it need to be edited by your customers? Do they drive any business calculations, or is that something you predefined for them? Are these capabilities of your product, the BI product, or do you actually need to maybe use a custom portal to add those capabilities in? So think through all of that. Now that we kind of have the basis of our product sorted out, hopefully, we can kind of dig into best practices. And we're starting with what, in my opinion, is the most critical, content. So as the slide says, your value is out-of-the-box content. It is not in providing BI functionality and walking away to let your customers build content. I've actually seen some people walk down that path, and it ends up being an uphill battle. So, I mean, ad hoc functionality is extremely powerful and is a big part of embedding BI. However, 85 to 90% of what your customer needs from your analytics solution should come out of the box from you. So content is hard, and most times the biggest part of your deployment. So make sure to do it for them, do it well, and make it your value prop. By now, you should know what your customer's biggest problems are, what's important to them, and how they want to consume it. Start your content build with the top 5 most critical things your customers need to know, and work down the list from there. You can do this in a very agile manner by releasing new functionality and insights on a regular basis, so don't expect to get it all right at once. It's an iterative process. Your customers are going to give you valuable feedback, most likely, as you make releases, so use that to drive your next content rollout. It's really key not to overthink things here. So use what exists in your BI tool you choose and customize as little as possible. It'll really save the amount of time it takes for you to develop and really increase the value you get out of embedding a BI tool. A best practice in content is to make sure to lock down the out-of-the-box content you create. So this should be your default content that works across most of your customer base. You, however, should allow them to copy that and create their own version, but never edit yours. So that way you keep one clean set to deploy to your customer base and update as you make changes. So in our opinion, the most effective way to get information across is to really tell a story with it. So whether that's actually designing dashboards properly to do so, using something like Yellowfin Storyboard, which in fact we're using right now to walk through this presentation, or building infographic storytelling on your data, which we do today using some of Yellowfin's latest features like big number charts and the report canvas. Here's actually an example of a very simple one telling a story about Twitter data. So I think it's really easy to follow and see what's going on here, and a customer can quickly look and understand it. So to wrap this up, you want your customers to instantly know what they're looking at and what it means to them. All right, so best practice number 2 is a little bit about functionality fit. So choosing the right BI provider to partner with by their out-of-the-box functionality. So this is a very short list of functionality you should be thinking about. If I put it all up here, it would probably have been a few pages. But really think through what functionality is critical, what's important, and what's more of a nice to have. The trick here is to find a partner that is putting a product in the market that meets as close to possible your functional checklist out of the box. This will give you the most value on your embed and get you to market much quicker. So if you end up determining you just need a few tabular reports and maybe a pie chart to provide some major value to your clients, then a full-scale BI tool may be overkill. It's key to not try and squeeze a square peg into a round hole here. All right, moving on to best practice number 3, focuses more on the user experience, so how your customers interact and use the analytics that you build. So what should you look for in a user experience? So start thinking about user experience of the BI tool in combination with that of your own application. Look and feel is critical to get right. So think about if you need a friendly, simple interface or a highly technical one. Either way, it should be easy to engage for your audience and interact with, as well as being functionally rich. Don't take shortcuts here. The minimum is really no longer adequate. So also think through performance from your data all the way up to the presentation layer. So years ago, 20 minutes was fine to run a report. It gave you some time to maybe go make some coffee. But now people expect dashboards to render in less than 10 seconds, and it's getting faster every year. Data engagement. So people today expect to be able to interact with their data, to best try and understand their business. So it really needs to be an engaging experience for your end customer so that they feel a part of it, a part of the action there. So make sure to think about how you want them to engage. So this one's pretty simple. Let's not make it ugly. You can have the most powerful analytics in the world, but if they look like they came from a computer running Windows 98, no one's really going to care or trust them. This is one of the smallest efforts you'll make, but has a massive payoff. Don't skip this. Make sure the BI tool you choose doesn't use obsolete or aging tech and can be independent of the disruptive changes going on right now in the tech space. So there's really no getting around it. Technology changes. Make sure that it's not reliant on any old plug-in technologies like Flash or Silverlight. Even think through how it connects with your data. For example, cubes were huge 10 years ago, but we really see the market trending away from them right now. So make sure your vendor has a strong story also around modern data architectures, especially around big data tooling. Also, make sure your partner's technology roadmap aligns with your own technology vision. This is an area you really want to make sure you don't have a big mismatch in. So any platform, any device. I think Yellowfin actually nails this one with their device-independent strategy. So Yellowfin's main content development comes from the web UI, and then consumption is the same across all platforms, regardless of the delivery. So whether you're on a tablet, phone, or laptop, you all have the same or very similar experience across them. So it makes it very easy to manage, very easy for your customers to engage. We at Blacklight see a huge demand for mobile BI in the market. You really need a story around this, period. So you don't want to head down the path with a partner that doesn't have a strong story here, only to find that your customers start demanding it or that a competitor is offering it. Best practice number 5 is you choose the level of UI that's right for you. This is all about how much of the BI tool's UI you want to make use of and what makes sense for your specific use case. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and hand things back to John for this one so he can walk us through some actual live examples of this.
Thanks, Lauren. I'll give you a quick break there. So look, just to give you a quick look at some of the different embedded options that you do have to choose from. So the first is our JavaScript API. And look, this really gives users the ability to embed Yellowfin, not just reports, but also dashboards into blogs or internet pages or intranet pages. This is an example here of a report, and you can just see it's just a iframe or YouTube-like URL, which you can just paste into the page. And this is an example here of a report, but we can also embed entire dashboards into your different web pages as well. So the next example is an example of rebranding, and we're very lucky today. We got permission to use one of the customer's development example sites. This is really an example of where you simply take Yellowfin and then make it look like your own product. So by completely changing the look and feel and the colors and the layouts and basically anything that you want there. So, and you can do all this with no coding through our administration options. So I'm just going to log into here. Look, this is an example for a client Resolve software, and it's an analytic module called Resolve Intelligence. So Resolve are a leader in dynamic case management, and this is really used for complaint management, case management, and incident management, and it's the de facto standard for many ombudsmans around the world. So as I'll show you in this example, I just want to say this is mock data, it's not real data. But you can see here how they've modified the look and feel of Yellowfin with their own branding. They've changed the colors, not only of the layout, but also of the colors in the charts as well. And as a BI user, it's very easy to see. So here are our complaints by season. So it's seasonal. We can see who the case managers were, what type of cases they have, what's closed, what's still open. You got the different team stats. We can bring up some mapping capabilities. So, I mean, this is an Australian Victorian example, but we can see, where the cases are. So we know specifically in, say, Skipton, where the cases are. And we can even drill in straight into those to be able to expand on that. So, they get all of the richness of, what Yellowfin has to offer, but for their clients, they would log into this module and, they have no idea it's Yellowfin. It's, as far as they're concerned, it's just part of the Resolve software. And so the next example that I'll show you here is just an example of tight integration. So this is where you've actually integrated Yellowfin into, in this case, a CRM product. So here's our CRM at the moment. We're looking at leads. We can look at our contacts. And if we want to switch into our reporting module, you can see that the look and feel of the product that we're actually in is identical, but now suddenly all of our Yellowfin features have appeared in there. So this is just another mock-up site, but we can now have our favorites. We've got all of our navigation options. We can create new reports. We can do all those types of things, but it's been completely rebranded. And we're using, through tight integration, single sign-on. So what happens is I don't need to, log in and out of Yellowfin because I've logged into the CRM. It will, drop the credentials as I switch between the applications. So it's really a seamless experience for the user. So I'm going to hand back now to Lauren, who will take us through our next part of the demo.
Perfect. And that actually leads us right into our next best practice, which is number 6, rebrand to increase user adoption. So your brand has value to your customers. It should be front and center. Your image should be maintained, and this should be seen in your customer's eyes as Company X's proprietary analytics or insight module. There shouldn't be any mention of the BI tool at all. So keep the experience seamless and keep your customers thinking about you. Best practice number 7 is seamless integration. So keep your customers engaged with your product. Avoid any kind of jarring transitions for them. So to accomplish this, kind of look at using single sign-on. Make sure you have thought through a tight single sign-on game plan John actually showed us a great example of this earlier. Your customer should log in one time and have the rest of the experience be seamless in your application by passing through authentication and security parameters in the background. We also use Yellowfin's Web Services integration layer to build automation in the product for user creation. So you want to be able to create, maintain users in one place, and so you want to do that in your own application, and then have it cascade behind the scenes to you from your tool to the BI tool with all the permissions and roles seamlessly applied. So this simply cannot and should not be a manual process. So make sure to leverage that. And I think John has a quick example of some web services stuff here.
Sure, thanks, Lauren. So I might have to relog back into this, but this is an example of a pullback list of reports that developers can access via our web services. So from a developer perspective, this is great for doing custom integration. And if I open one of these reports, and yeah, again, it's just going to ask me for a login. But look, when I do log into one of these reports, what you can see is that everything has been stripped away to the bare bones, so even to the point of interactivity. So the developer, if they wanted to, could just turn on any of the interactive features whatsoever. So in this example, they might turn on the tooltips. But with this, they can essentially rebuild Yellowfin in pretty much any way that they want. It's completely flexible for them. And that's using our web services, which is really, really good for very tight integration. So I'll hand back now to Lauren.
All right, on to best practice number 8, maintain the integrity of your data security. So it is 100% critical that you make sure that your clients are only seeing their data and that only the right people in the organization have access to the data that they're supposed to. So first off, make sure report security is tight. Any break in the chain here could cause major damage to the trust between you and your clients. In most cases, different users are going to need access to different reports, and different users looking at the same reports are going to need access to different data. Think really carefully about how you set this up and be comfortable with your vendor's process around that. This can actually be a pretty tricky area for some products. So next, also plan for multi-tenancy. So setting up your deployment with multi-tenancy, it's a massive value add in the long term. It makes it easier to upgrade one instance, change or add to your master corporate content like we discussed earlier, and keep control of your customer's experience with this deployment strategy. So even if you have a large customer base using on-prem solutions, think about finding a way to do a blended solution if possible, and pick a vendor that has that capability out of the box. Next best practice is number 9, prepare data for reporting, not transactions. We have seen instances where a customer's transactional system works just fine for reporting. However, the vast majority of the time, this is going to cause you some massive headaches. So best practice here is to think through a separate data strategy focused on reporting. This will, of course, vary from client to client. You will need to ask yourself what the volume, velocity, and variety of your data is, and then put together an architecture that makes sense for the customer-facing application that you're building. You may find that you don't actually need to deploy a massive Hadoop cluster, and just a well-performing relational database would serve you quite well. It really just depends on your use case. All right, so to show you a bit of what we at Blacklight do, here's a typical stack that we deploy for our customer-facing analytics solutions. So starting at the bottom, you'll see that we try to use a data lake strategy as much as possible. So we leave as much data in its native format as possible. Data will then stream up either through a tool like Spark if we need to do some high-speed, heavy statistical analysis, or in cases where that's not necessary, we just access it directly. Either way, data will then kind of flow up to our data management layer, which for us is a lightweight virtual database we created called Data Current. This is a clean layer where we can bring all of the data we need together, access custom APIs, or even unstructured data, apply business rules, federate and optimize queries, maintain governance, among other things. So this allows the consuming BI tool to sit on top of one clean connection and data structure, which makes it completely independent of all the chaos and nonsense that's going on underneath. this really creates a very agile way to build your customer-facing analytics solution. So at the very top, sometimes we'll be deploying just a rebranded Yellowfin by itself, or we may have gone and tightly embed that into an existing product you already have, or perhaps even wrapped it in a custom portal to extend some functionality such as data entry or maybe business rule input, things like that. So finally, data quality. This is one of those unsexy things that you just have to get right. The slickest presentation of data is really worth nothing if the data quality is poor. So if you feed junk in, you're going to get junk out. Make sure to get this right. All right, best practice number 10 is make it easy for your clients and pre-build the metadata layer. So having a metadata layer is really critical functionality for handing over any ad hoc functionality to your end users. So if you do, ship with out-of-the-box metadata. This part takes a bit of work, so make sure you think through the structure of of that metadata. Think about what questions your customers will try and answer, and make sure to provide business-friendly terminology here instead of dodgy database names. So you want to make sure business users can understand this stuff. All right, on to best practice number 11. Plan out your deployment strategy. So here we've got the deployment checklist. This is a very abbreviated list of some of the key items that you need to clearly define and think through. You need to do this not only for your initial deployment, but think about how you're going to manage a lot of this moving forward as your customer base grows and as your product ages. Also, you need to make sure that you engage both technical and business assets to make this work. So think about the skill sets that you need to bring together to make this a big win. So it will fail if you don't have involvement on both ends. You really need both technical assets as well as business assets involved. So make sure that you're also working with an implementation partner that has all of these skill sets as well, and they should really be thinking about both how you sell this and how best to handle the technical side. So it shouldn't be heavier on one side or the other. All right, best practice number 12, your BI partner. So this is the last best practice, and besides content, is probably the most critical to pay attention to. So here, choose wisely. You are about to embark on a really big journey, which in most cases is going to be a very, very fruitful one. So make sure that both parties see this as a relationship and not a transaction. So you're choosing to bring a piece of powerful technology into your architecture that's going to be customer facing, which means it's going to be something your customers are going to directly judge you on. So once you embed, you probably should are planning to be in this for the long run. So make sure that your partner cares well after the first check clears. You're going to want to have a deep relationship with both your technology and services partner, and ideally have all parties tied somehow to the success of your deployment. Make sure your partner focuses on embedded BI or customer-facing analytics. As I mentioned earlier in the webinar, this is a completely different beast from an internal BI deployment, and one that has many additional layers of complexity. So to sum this up, if you treat your BI technology and services teams as partners and not a vendor, they're likely to treat you like a partner and not a customer. So be transparent, be upfront and honest with each other, and this can be a very successful endeavor. That about wraps it up for me. I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to John. I really enjoyed walking you through these best practices today, and look forward to answering any questions you have here shortly.
Thank you so much for that, Lauren. So, in summary, look, embedding a BI into your application is a great opportunity, and using third-party tools such as Yellowfin is certainly a faster and less riskier way to be successful around that. Lauren took you through the list of best practices, which you can see here all summarized. And these best practices are really things we want you to consider and think about before embarking on your embedded BI journey. And, if you are already on that journey, to go back and look at to see what you can do to improve on that. So if anyone on this call would like Yellowfin or Blacklight to accompany them on their journey, we're certainly keen to hear from you, and our details are there on the screen. So thank you again very much for joining us, and we hope you have a fantastic day.